Europe has awakened 860 billion in military defense spending, and that is just for starters. French fighter jet Mirage is Mirage no more. It takes active part in defending Ukraine these days. In a Blitz interview with Darren Gerdes, an author behind Professor Gerdes Explains YouTube channel, we're craving for explanations indeed here in Ukraine. Good afternoon, my name is Henrik Keen, and we are UATV English and English-speaking Ukrainian state media in constant persuasion to deliver hard truth in easy terms, as usual for you, for the whole free world, directly from Ukraine. So, the awakening of Europe. 26 EU member states denounced Russian aggression and pledged continued support for Ukrainian joint resolution issued at an emergency summit on March 6, despite, Hungary dissenting. The lack of consensus on the declaration, which stopped short of committing concrete steps in support of Ukraine, underscores the persistent differences between Moscow-friendly, to put it mildly, Budapest and the rest of the bloc. Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orban can still block major decisions that require an anonymous vote, such as the 6-month extension of sanctions against Russia, for example. But speaking ahead of the summit, the EU's top diplomat Kaja Kallas suggested that European countries might seek to push forward new support for Ukraine through a coalition of the willing to avoid Hungary's veto. The 26 EU members committed to several principles in pursuing a just and long-lasting peace in Ukraine, namely Kyiv and Europe's participation in any negotiations, no ceasefire without a subsequent comprehensive peace agreement, security guarantees for Ukraine, and respect for Ukraine's sovereignty and territorial integrity.
The European Council reaffirms its continued and unwavering support for Ukraine's independence, sovereignty, and territorial integrity within its internationally recognized borders. Achieving peace through strength requires Ukraine to be in the strongest possible position, with Ukraine's own robust military and defense capabilities as an essential component. European Council statement.
The US outreach to Russia and bilateral talks on Ukraine in Saudi Arabia on February 18th sparked concerns, or better said, did not spark any concerns at all, that US President Donald Trump seeks to cut a deal with the Kremlin while sidelining Kyiv and Europe. The declaration came as the EU agreed to mobilize up to $860 billion for defense spending, amid fears that the US might scale down its presence on the continent, and that is happening. But the Rearm Europe initiative proposed by the European Commission includes $150 billion loan covered by unused budget funds and a step to loosen fiscal rules and free more €600 billion in government spending. The Trump administration's decision to freeze military aid for Ukraine and intelligence sharing also highlighted Europe's growing role in sustaining Ukraine's resistance against Russian aggression. Despite this, the proposal to commit a new €20 billion package was dropped from the text of the declaration. The document reaffirms still that the EU would continue providing Ukraine with already pledged support in 2025, including €20.5 billion under the Ukraine facility and $18.1 billion as part of the G7 loan covered by frozen Russian assets. Hooray! To ensure the support of Slovak Prime Minister Robert Fico, the declaration also included calls on the European Commission, Slovakia and Ukraine to intensify efforts towards finding workable solutions to the gas transit issue. Fico, who has adopted increasingly anti-Ukrainian rhetoric but avoided still blocking steps on the EU level in Orban's fashion, has repeatedly lambasted Kyiv over ending the transit of Russian gas through its territory to Slovakia and other EU countries. Well, I'm sure Robert Fico will do business with any invader of Slovakia, as business is business, nothing personal, right? Have you noticed, however, how fast it took for staunch anti-Ukrainian and anti-European politicians like Fico, Viktor Orban to turn from "it will never happen" to "it needs to happen now," actually, with this almost €1 trillion spending in defense of Europe. And not just Orban and Fico, a land far, far away right Marine Le Pen, who could have expected, said it clearly, Trump's behavior is treacherous. If you ever wonder what was the reason for that lightning speed turnover in all the pro-Moscow minds, or better said pro-Moscow, just pro-Moscow, in Europe, here it is in easy terms. It is one thing to be a pro-Russian, well-paid puppet in Europe, where Moscow just sends you money or finances your party, and it is a totally different thing when Putin's invasion of Europe turns from a distant concept that you were generously paid by Moscow to portray it as such into objective reality that actually will destroy all your assets, all the freedoms and values of Europe you enjoyed so carelessly and abused them. Many are ready to work for Moscow remotely, but no one wants to become its satellite in their own country. And this is exactly what Putin's plan is. Ukraine's French-provided Mirage 2000 fighter jets took part in repelling a Russian air attack on Ukraine for the first time on March 7th, according to Ukrainian air forces. Russia launched a large-scale aerial assault overnight, firing 67 missiles of various types and deploying 194 drones. Ukraine's air defenses intercepted 34 missiles and 100 drones with anti-aircraft missile units, electronic warfare systems, and mobile fire groups contributing to the effort. Fighter jets, including F-16s and French Mirage 2000s, were also deployed. French Defense Minister Sébastien Lecornu confirmed on February 6th that the first Mirage 2005 generation pledged to Kiev had arrived in Ukraine. The jets were part of a military aid package announced by French President Emmanuel Macron in June 2024, which included pilot training. Macron did not actually disclose the total number of aircraft France would supply, but the Mirage 2000, a fourth-generation supersonic fighter, was first introduced by Dassault Aviation in the early 1970s. And then the Mirage 2000, fifth version of it, introduced in 1999, features upgraded avionics, improved air-to-air and air-to-ground combat capabilities, and an advanced sensor and control system. The deployment of Mirage 2000 jets marks a significant step in Ukraine's air defense strategy as it continues to strengthen its capabilities against ongoing Russian brutal attacks. Well, here is one interesting fact for you here. Russian oligarchs offered $1 million just recently to any Russian pilot who would down French Mirage. What you need to note here is the word dollars. Russian oligarchs do not even bother to offer Russian rubles. They offer a currency that Russia is running on and is valued there, which is American dollars. And that is all you're ever needed to know about Russia. Darren Gadders, an author behind Professor Gadders Explains YouTube channel. Good afternoon, Professor.
Thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure, always. Well, craving explanation. Please explain. It seems to me that America is in a state of deep shock caused by, how do you put it mildly, fast and furious Trump's activity, let's put it that way. Am I right?
You're right. So I think the intention is to do things as fast as possible, to break things, to have a shock and awe campaign, but not militarily, but politically.
Why? I mean, why? And then, so the end of tenure is not an aim, and it's not. But he's not going there. What's the plan? Is there any plan? Because I tell you what I'm asking. When I was in Munich security conference, I was talking to my colleagues, the New York Post, the Washington Post, the Time Mag, and they all say one thing: it's like an impulse and nothing else. There is no general plan. Is that so?
I think there's a direction, but no plan.
Right.
There's a difference between those two things. The direction is, I'm standing by that I'm a deal. This is Trump standing by that I'm a deal maker. I'm going to make this deal. I don't know that there's any plan to get there. Little bits and pieces have leaked out saying, well, I don't have a plan yet. I mean, from aides in his administration, we don't have a plan yet. But the idea is to bring people to the table, make a deal, and I guess there's that as a motivating North Star, but I don't know that they have anything together about, what the end result may be.
Right.
People certainly are speculating, but that's about it.
So, but we the people, it looks like me the people now. How likely is it that America is to protest in a way that may cause Trump's impeachment? I'm just asking. Is that possible even?
I think it's highly unlikely for multiple reasons. So part of the problem is that the Republican Party is more MAGA than it is conservative. And when I say that, I mean more populist than conservative. And the populist impulse is to break things, punch the system in the teeth. When you hear people talking about the deep state or something along those lines, that's a MAGA populist kind of line. Conservatives, I'm a Republican, but conservatives like me are like, what are you doing? That's not what we're trying to do. We're trying to conserve the systems, the best parts of the systems. Right. So for that reason, I don't think you'll see it culturally. And then legally, you could impeach if you had an impeachment in the House, but it's controlled slightly by Republicans, so that's not going to happen. And even if it was to go through the House and get an impeachment verdict, it would go to the Senate, and you'd need two-thirds of the Senate to, so there's no chance of that anytime soon.
Okay, so as a conservative, as a proper Republican, let's put it that way, you are asking the question, what are you doing? So what are they doing, do you think? Just punching the system in the teeth and that's it? I mean, that's the goal?
Yeah, so there's a real impulse toward undoing whatever the Democrats have done within the United States. And some of it, like overspending, I can understand some overspending, but the things that we're doing in order to undo it are things like trying to lop off USAID. I would like to remove some of the programs in USAID, but wholesale lopping off means wholesale destroying our soft power. If you destroy your soft power, you only have hard power left if you need to be able to influence others within the world. So that's a fool's errand in my estimation, but that's not the way that these people see it. There's a real combative streak within the populist MAGA side, just like there is on the progressive side within the Democrats, the very far left. You see those. So old school liberals and old school conservatives who wanted to argue with each other and say, you're wrong for this reason and you're wrong for that reason, but still be able to sit down and have coffee together, we're kind of rare in our society.
Sad but true.
It's very frustrating. Now, when it spills over to Ukraine, it's even more frustrating for old school conservatives like me who are looking at this going, wait a minute, what would Reagan have done? And this was like almost the exact opposite approach of what Reagan would have done, right? So we're restricting Ukraine right now, both militarily with, no more aid and with intelligence. And we see what just happened with the massive attack, massive bombs, drones and rockets, missiles attack. There's a reason that happened, but we're not restraining Russia on the other side, which is curious. The analogy that I gave some time ago when we first started arming Ukraine was like, there's a victim down in an alleyway below our apartment, and we see three guys surrounding him, and he's about to get seriously injured. And we see, I have a baseball bat. I throw a baseball bat down to him, and now he has a chance to defend himself. Okay, that's early on in the war. But it's now turned where we've gone, okay, you know what? You guys just need to stop it down there. Hey, you guys need to stop it down there. So I go downstairs and I say, give me my baseball bat back. You guys, until you guys stop it, I'm going to take this baseball bat back.
Pay me the rent.
What are we doing?
Pay me the rent. This baseball bat cost me $350 billion. Why not?
It's really a backwards approach. If anything else, give him more weapons so he can put it to end rather than just tell him you better stop it. And we're not telling Putin on the other side. And if we are telling Putin on the other side, what are we threatening him with? More sanctions? I mean, is that the thing that that's the only thing that I've heard that we've actually threatened Russia with, and that was only Lindsey Graham and today.
Don't get me wrong, Russians are happy with what is going on in the United States at the moment.
Oh, they're excited.
Sanctions are excited, absolutely delighted to see sanctions almost lifted. They're also, they're floating in the air. But in terms of getting back to things here in Ukraine, Trump is a cloud with the silver lining in it, indeed, as Europe has awakened. And 860 billion euro is being spent for the rearm initiative.
Well, and it took 3 years to get here.
See, that's what was meant exactly. And this is iron hard Trump's way to put things, and this is actually right. Where you've been, I mean, you guys been here for 3 years. What happened? So
Right.
he only took the ground that the
I'm
Democrats just left. Yielding grounds was the Democratic thing. Yielding grounds in America, economically, politically, militarily, here in Ukraine, massively yielding ground, and then saying Trump is bad. Yeah, Trump may be bad, but you let it happen. But the next question, last question for tonight. What do we do next about it? Just survive this 3 years? What is the way of smart messaging Trump, if there is any?
Okay, so I'm not sure. He can zig and he can zag, and so far he's only zigged.
Exactly.
If he really is just supporting Russia, he'll just continue to just zig. If he's really just trying to support himself, he'll zig, he'll zag, he'll zig, he'll zag in order to make himself look good in this process. So that's the thing to look forward to, and to see where Trump actually is. In the meantime, he'll take credit for Ukraine, for Europe stepping up and supporting Ukraine. See, I caused them to do that. But come on, Europe, you should have been doing this for the last 3 years in earnest, not just talking about it. So that's what we'll see. How it'll all play out, I don't know. I don't think it ends anytime soon just because Trump says he's going to make a deal.
No.
I don't see the... Go ahead.
No, I mean, I'm not seeing it. From my perspective here in Kiev, with all these air raid alerts blaring in the every day and now and then. So the thing I wanted to hope for cautiously is that we, as a Europe, are getting more united in a way to see goddamn obvious things like wolves standing at the doorstep. And the credit for this, unfortunately, goes to Donald Trump.
And you are, and it's right, and it's unfortunate that it took this in order to finally cause it. But that's the reality of where we are. The upside is I have great hope for Ukraine because you have the financial resources to make it through 2025. The Europeans have already dealt with that. The military capability in Ukraine has been ramping up, and I'm not sure that if the Europeans were to go to Trump and say, hey, we'd like to buy these systems for you, and we might or might not supply Ukraine with it, will you sell it to us? I'm pretty sure he's going to make a deal, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So I mean, sure. Yeah, so I have great hope in spite of a very bad look, it's been bad policy after bad policy. I mean, I need ammunition, not a ride. The U.S. assumed that you were just going to be overridden or overrun right away. And then turns out you fought. And then we started providing aid, but then we slow-walked the aid. And even before we slow-walked the aid, we had that 6-month pause in the aid because we couldn't get our act together. And the Europeans could have been providing this all. It's just... If it's not one thing, it's another. And the Europeans are getting there, but the Ukrainians are paying for it all along. I mean, as we make every mistake, you're paying for the cost of our mistakes. And it's very sad to see.
But as someone who likes to think of himself as a Ukrainian media, I would like to, if I can't smart message Donald Trump, maybe I can address American nations. And maybe that's what we should be doing here. Because American people, Republicans or Democrats, that's the might that put Donald Trump in place and it could take him away. I mean, that's should we be, do you think that we should be messaging American nation? How to do that?
Okay, so the message should be, like if I was your communications consultant, and I'm not, but if I was, I'd say every time anything is talked about, anything about Ukraine, it must be prefaced with Russia is the aggressor and Russia is doing this and Russia is killing our people and from every diplomatic source in Europe, everywhere around the world, it should be saying that because what we've done is we put parity between like, well, we have to stop the killing. The Russians, they're losing people. The Ukrainians, they're losing people. Well, no. Who's the victim and who's the victimizer here? We have to get that straight before anything else is useful here. And until we get that moral clarity, it's just not going to go where it needs to go.
Professor, thank you so very much for the consultation and for your time, for your experience, amazing things just learned. I hope we can do it sometime very soon, and we just see how things are wrapping up and down, because I mean every night, every morning, I have my hopes every night and I have my fears every morning. Just open up the feed, just what Trump just said and done. But it turns out that Europe is finally awake, and that's the fact. And see where it leads us, see where we're going with this.
I think Europe's rhetoric is finally going to be matched by action, and that's very comforting to see.
Absolutely. Thank you so very much, Sam. We talk soon.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Goodbye. Well, that was it for tonight. My name is Enrique, and we are Creative English, an English-speaking Ukrainian state media in a constant persuasion to deliver hard truth in easy terms for you, for the whole free world, directly from Ukraine. So in return, please like, share, and comment. Your voice matters, as it in turn helps Ukrainian voice to be heard globally. So stay safe, and see you at, that's right, weekly episode. Goodbye.